Yo everybody, what's poppin'? You got MRC Core here. We're gonna do some lore today, and we're gonna explore Eula. So right now, the music that you're gonna hear in the background is Spyro the Dragon Nasty Nord Remix by Glitch X City. Go ahead and check her out on YouTube. She's absolutely amazing. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and jump straight into it. So Eula is one of my favorite characters in the game. She is a rebellious descendant of the old aristocracy who is always out on the battlefield. She was born into the Lawrence family, which is a family of sinners, and Eula has needed a unique approach to the world to navigate the towering walls of prejudice peacefully. Of course, this doesn't prevent her from severing ties with the Lawrences. She is known as the Spindrift Knight, and she hunts down Mondstadt's enemies in the wild to exact her unique vengeance, as she puts it. So, there you go. If you didn't know, the Lawrences are... They're a large family in Mondstadt who used to rule over Mondstadt with an iron fist and just unimaginable amounts of wealth. They owned slaves, they were absolutely prejudiced and biased against all of the serfs in Mondstadt, and everyone in Mondstadt basically hates them. They carry that history with them, and so by extension they also hate Eula just because she happened to be born into their family. Eula also does not like anyone in the Lawrence family whatsoever. So, big thing to note. We're just going to go ahead and jump straight into some of the character stories. Alright, so Eula's role within the Knights of Favonius is the captain of the reconnaissance company. The nature of her work means that she doesn't set foot in the city very often. Instead, she spends most of her time out in the wilderness, out in the woods, areas around Mondstadt, leading her team of scouts as they hunt down Abyss Order operatives and other monsters, like possibly hilly churls or, treasure hoarders, etc., etc. Eula is known as the Spindrift Knight, as I stated earlier. She wields her blade with consummate skill, and perhaps more importantly, she is well versed in strategy and possesses great courage as well as excellent intuition. Grandmaster Varka had nothing but the highest praise for her, even declaring once that she was the Dandelion Knight's equal on the battlefield, meaning that her skills rival Jean's, which is really amazing. Or perhaps he also meant Vanessa, Lady Vanessa. He could have been talking about her, it's unclear by the statement. But either way, incredibly powerful woman. On the face of it, to have two such outstanding knights attending the defense of Mondstadt in a single generation should be a cause for nothing but celebration. You dig a little deeper and you find a fundamental difference, though, between the two, aka Jean and Eula. Eula, as I said earlier, is a descendant of the Lawrence clan. The blood that flows through her veins once flowed through Mondstadt's oppressors during one of the darkest periods of the city's history. And consequently, Eula has been viewed with contempt by the citizens of Mondstadt since her birth. The name Lawrence stands for a legacy of depravity and despotism that stains Mondstadt's past and scars the minds of the citizens even to the present day. Like I said, everyone in Mondstadt hates the Lawrences, for a very good reason. So, whenever Eula appears, old wounds resurface. People hate her, they despise that aristocracy, and her reputation they don't accept it. So, Eula, though, despite all of this, is very strong-willed, and she joined the Knights of Favonius and rose to the rank of captain. When people in the city voiced their reservations, she would respond head-on, claiming that her chosen course of action was out of a desire for vengeance. This matter-of-fact confession would alarm them all the more and have them convinced that she joined the Knights of Favonius only to serve as a mole for the Lawrences. Because, yes, conspiracy theory, let's all just go with that, right? But it's not even that far-fetched as the problem, and that's why a lot of people in Mondstadt believe it. So, one person who sees things differently, though, is Jean. In fact, Jean speaks very fondly of Eula. What she has to say, quoting, "The rumors are all groundless. The Spindrift Knight is simply misunderstood. That is all." So yeah, Jean stands up for what's right, and I absolutely love that. So when you get to friendship level 2, you get character story number 1. On one hand, she is a descendant of the disgraced Lawrences, the scion of a corrupt aristocracy. On the other, she is one of the top 2 sword fighters in Mondstadt. In other words, Eula is equal parts tainted blood and superior swordsmanship. There is no knowing when she might strike, nor what she might take from you. In the eyes of the citizens of Mondstadt, the reconnaissance captain is unpredictable and tumultuous as the waves on a stormy sea. Eula responds with a cold haughtiness to accusations of this nature. To any who dare insinuate such things to her face, she replies, "How dare you? I will remember this." She is consumed by the desire to avenge herself. She is often on the move far away from the city. Sometimes when she returns to Mondstadt, she'll brandish her greatsword and march straight into the headquarters of the Knights of Favonius. On occasion, 2 fresh recruits standing on guard on their first day on patrol watched the scene play out before their eyes. They were alarmed and they weren't sure how to respond, but they didn't intervene in the end. They just couldn't bring themselves to do it. So instead, what they did was they watched helplessly while Eula made a beeline to Jean's office. To their surprise, hours passed and there was no sound of struggle. So these 2 bystanders, we'll call them, biased. There you go. They were worried though, and the guards raised concerns to Cavalry Captain Kaya and Lisa when they passed by. And this is what was said. The reconnaissance captain is back again. When you saw her, was it when she was marching towards Jean's office with her sword in hand looking like she wanted to kill somebody? Goodness, I must head there straight away. How can they have a tea break without me? Lisa hurried to Jean's office the moment she finished speaking. Meanwhile, Kaya took the 2 guards outside and explained to them while trying to suppress a fit of giggles. We all know that the acting Grandmaster is a good judge of character, don't we? The Knights of Favonius are interested in a person's ability, not their family history. That's why she gives up her time to spar with the reconnaissance captain. In doing so, she could preserve the dignity of the Knights of Favonius while also providing a way of settling old grievances. Quite brilliant, don't you think? And the guards respond, "Oh, so that's how it is. So tea break is code for sparring?" This kind of thing happens on a monthly basis. If they're engaged in some sort of sparring ritual in there for the sake of getting old grievances and honing their fighting skills, how come they don't make a ton of noise? It's actually a pretty good question. How come they don't make noise? Gets the brain juices flowing. Once you get to friendship level 3, you get to character story number 2. In truth, Eula is nothing like the fearsome predator many imagine her to be. On the contrary, she's constantly met with prejudice at every turn she faces, meaning she's a victim of prejudice. I mean, it's just the way it is. At one time, shops would refuse to sell her their goods. Restaurants would not allow her to place orders, and the citizens on her patrol route would refuse to cooperate with her. Eula'S work is fraught with these types of difficulties. When conflict arises, Eula fights back with a sternly worded threat to indicate that she will remember a grievance to make the offending party pay for it one day. And it works like a spell, because as soon as she says something, the conflict immediately dissipates, and it never escalates to a real confrontation. Funnily enough, though, people have always had their guard up around Eula. She's a law-abiding citizen. She's never harmed another Mondstadter. That's what they're called? They're called Mondstadters? Crazy. But she's never harmed another Mondstadt citizen. She may come across as having a cold demeanor, but she's entirely scrupulous in her speech and conduct. No one can ever find fault with her actions, despite how much they hate her. As people gradually get to know her, their morbid fear of her will dissipate. They will also start to realize her threats of vengeance are nothing more than a figure of speech that simply serve as a verbal warning in the moment. Eula, who may or may not be working to bring down the Knights of Favonius from the inside, Eula, who may or may not be an aristocrat mole, new recruits in the Knights of Favonius find her the most difficult person to deal with, because they're prejudiced against the Lawrences, and it's Eula Lawrence, because that is her curse right now, and forever. When Jean sends a new recruit to track down Eula in the wilderness and deliver a new set of verbal orders, they always receive the same response. If you have to resort to tasking the descendant of your former oppressors with doing your work, then perhaps you are not as strong as I thought. That's what they say to Jean, mind you, the acting Grandmaster of the Knights. Think about that. New recruits are bad-mouthing Jean for asking them to talk to Eula. Crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Despite the antagonism in her words, she will complete her newly assigned task to perfection, though. The new recruit is invariably forced to admit that, with her abilities, it's no wonder she was able to achieve captaincy within just a few years of joining the Knights of Favonius. Everyone knows Eula as cold and antagonistic, the Spindrift Knight, the aristocrat who has a score to settle with the Knights of Favonius, openly hostile, potentially dangerous. But is this really the truth? No, absolutely not. On the way back, the new recruits usually think back over Eula's every action, and they think, what was that kind and resilient look I saw in her eyes when she wasn't looking at me? She seems to take her job seriously, so surely she can be relied on after all, right? So you can just see, this is a very thematic thing with Eula. It runs extremely deep, and every citizen of Mondstadt absolutely hates her because her name happens to be Lawrence. It's mind-boggling. Next character story that you unlock at Friendship Level 4. Mondstadt is a city of freedom. Oh boy, like we didn't know that already. And happiness, where even the descendants of a disgraced former ruling class can find true friends. There is one person that Eula can rely on to be her spokesperson to the Mondstadt masses, and that is Outrider Amber. Everyone loves Amber. So whenever she's around, shopkeepers will sell their wares to Eula at normal prices. If they're in an especially good mood, they might even exchange a few words with her. It's at moments like this that Eula shows her most agreeable side. Because of this, and because Amber's just so nice, she'll often accompany Eula out on trips, or even run all of her errands for her and deliver goods straight to her home. Amber is also the reason that the city folk end up hearing about the reconnaissance captain's accomplishments in the field. Every time Amber informs them of Eula's long list of achievements in battle, and I mean a very long list. Eula has so many merits going for her. The people that Amber informs, they audibly gasp. Audible gasp. Just like that. Exactly like that, to a T. Early one weekend morning, Amber stood atop a makeshift stage of wooden crates and began announcing Eula's latest highlights. Recently, the Knights of Favonius Renaissance captain saved the life of a woman at Dornman Port. After further investigation with this woman's close cooperation, she then proceeded to successfully capture all the Abyss Order operatives hiding in the vicinity of the port. The woman in question was a renowned legal expert from Liyue, and the Knights of Favonius have since received official correspondence from the Liyue Communications Office thanking the reconnaissance captain for her deeds. Whether because of Amber's persistent efforts have overcome historical prejudice, or because Eula's achievements as a knight have quelled the long-standing fear in people's hearts, Eula's life has started to change a little bit in the recent years. Most of the city folk are no longer openly hostile toward her, and she has won over the members of the Knights of Favonius with her consistent results in the field. As for the members of the reconnaissance company under her leadership, they just support her unconditionally. They always have her back when they head out into Mondskirt's outskirts and defend the peace of their nation. Of course, The person who has always tirelessly rooted for Eula and is now the most delighted to see people's attitudes start to change is Amber. They had been friends for a long time before Eula ever joined the Knights of Favonius. And as the beloved mentee of Amber's grandfather, the first outrider, Eula has her complete trust. I absolutely love that it actually does show Amber in her character story, because those two really are best friends, and there's so much between them. It's so wholesome. I absolutely love it. So, character story number 4. One might not expect this from her cold attitude and her sharp tongue, but Eula'S actually a very talented chef. The Reconnaissance Company prides itself on having the best field rations within the Knights of Favonius. One staple of their inventory is a moon-shaped pie. One might even call this a moon pie, but it's just a shaped moon pie, if you catch my drift. Though a field ration, this wonderfully delicious and highly portable food is loved by all who try it. The Reconnaissance Company's designated chef once admitted that when developing this item, she was inspired by the captain's own baked goods. She extended the baking time to make sure the crust was tougher, and also substituted a few highly perishable ingredients with ones that last longer, reducing the cost while significantly prolonging the shelf life. Even after a major change to the recipe, the pie still tastes delicious. So, whenever the scouts are snacking, they can't help but wonder, is this the field ration version? Well, if this is the field ration version, how delicious is Eula'S recipe? The answer to this question is buried deep within the pages of a dusty old book in the library. The Lawrence clan may have been overthrown a long time ago, but they have never given up hope of one day rising again, reclaiming their place as dictators. So that they are always prepared for this monumental moment, their offspring are subjected to an educational regimen so unbelievably harsh that it is considered borderline abusive. Not even borderline, it's just straight up abusive. Noble obligations, which Eula does reference from time to time, must be performed to absolute perfection in every possible sense. And these obligations cover etiquette, ritual, study, cooking, and other domestic chores. It's absolutely insane. In the eyes of the Lawrence clan, post-liberation Mondstadt lacks etiquette and taste. When the day comes for their clan, as they believe, to seize power once again, there shall be none who are qualified to be our servants. We must be cautious. We must never stoop to the level of commoners and set foot in the quagmire of vulgarity. Yeah, that's the Lawrence clan. I would spit on their face if they said something like that to me. Yep, that's what I would do. The Lawrence clan's culinary arts teacher was particularly strict, though. If your dough was missing a half spoonful of flour, or if your condiment was a few grains of salt short, grains of salt, you did not hear me stutter, or if you were 2 seconds late to remove something from the oven, you were likely to be scolded, disciplined, and possibly beaten. As far as Eula is concerned, the haute cuisine revered by the aristocrats is just another worthless consequence of people dogmatically following outdated rules. For this reason, the only kind of person Eula will permit to try her own home baking is someone who she respects. No, that would be taking it too far. Rather, it seems someone who she grudgingly accepts will keep following me around and bothering me, seemingly undeterred by my warnings, despite having crossed me many times to date. This implies the Traveler. It could also imply Amber, though. So it's not 100% sure what Eula'S implying with that statement, because this is Eula. Eula would only share this probably with the Traveler, though. So, just keep that in mind. The 5th character story is as such. Besides traditional etiquette, art is the second most highly prized asset to the aristocrats, known as the second soul. The Dance of Sacrifice, a ritual used by the illustrious families to display their nobility, is thought of as the crystallized form of this soul, the prized gem in a ruler's scepter. Folklore holds that Mondstadt's most illustrious clans jointly created the Dance of Sacrifice long before the aristocracy's reign of bloodshed began. The third act, which represents the Lawrence clan, is a solo dance known as Flickering Candlelight. The most important part of the Dance of Sacrifice, it was performed by the most senior dancer, who was typically the eldest daughter of the clan. The Lawrence clan would summon top dancers to serve as tutors for the eldest daughter and ensure it was performed to perfection. Bleeding toes were seen as a point of pride and a rite of passage for every dancer. This ancient ceremony was a continuous tradition for so long that even today, long after being expelled by the people of Mondstadt, is still honored by the Lawrence clan. However, without the grand banquet and the gorgeous stage that once featured prominently in ceremonial performances, the Dance of Sacrifice is now far from the grandiose affair that it once was. Furthermore, the stringent requirements regarding the dancers' posture and movements have also been relaxed due to the lack of tutors. In the end, the Lawrence clan reluctantly decided that it could no longer be a mandatory part of the curriculum, and they relegated it to an artistic pastime. Over time, the negative connotations and elitist expectations associated with this dance have faded away, and today it survives simply as a graceful dance. As the eldest daughter to the present-day Lawrence clan, Eula found it to be a relaxing pastime in her youth and a welcome respite from her otherwise grueling courses of study. Today, Eula appears to have put her artistic pursuits behind her. At least, no one pictures dancing when they think of the Spindrift Night, except everyone who has seen Amber and Eula dance together, which is absolutely beautiful, and I wish that I could see more of that. Nevertheless, a distinctly dance-like aesthetic can be observed in Eula'S blade work, along with an elegant rhythm and musicality that are difficult to capture in words. As her greatsword rises and falls, sways to and fro, her distinctive and graceful poise is like that of a dancer under the moonlight, far away, immaculate, and sublime. So this is another part of her story. Glaciers and Waves. You actually get to see this one at Friendship Level 4. As we all know, Eula bears the Lawrence family crest, the glacial seal, as it is known. It is the highest martial symbol of the clan, and it represents the spirit of the Lawrences in the early days of Mondstadt before their fall from grace. Cold and unsullied, undaunted by any flame, composed and unshaken in all circumstances. Few among their number have passed the clan's trials in 1,000 years, and the hopes of the clan are passed from one seal bearer to the next. Eula was very young when she underwent the trial, but she still passed it, and with ease at that. She took up the seal in the process. Then she departed with that badge of honor in her possession, and has barely contacted the clan since. Her icy sword is a manifestation of the strength represented by the seal, striking with the cold, brutal force of a relentless blizzard and driving her foes into retreat. Yet, sharp and bright as ice as she is, she has the title of Spindrift Knight, a name that leads many who hear it to assume that she manipulates hydro instead of cryo. And there is a story behind that misunderstanding, the story of a habit. You see, Eula carries an exquisitely crafted bone whistle with her at all times. Each time she blows it, the vivid sound of ocean waves rings out loud and clear, far and wide. Since the area her company is in charge of borders the sea, reproducing the sound of waves can be an excellent means of disturbing the enemy's judgment, or deceiving less intelligent monsters into believing that a tsunami is inbound, causing them to flee in panic. Using this unique combat tactic has helped Eula emerge victorious against larger forces than her own in numerous occasions, hence why she is known as the Spindrift Knight. Of course, this bone whistle is capable of imitating many other sounds, and Eula, though, has her reasons for imitating ocean waves. It would seem something akin to the Glacier Knight would suit her better, but perhaps Eula prefers the rolling waves to the cold and unyielding ice, roaming freely across the world, gentle but firm with the reefs and sands in their dominion. Yes, she yearns not to be sharp and rigid like ice, but to be free and unbound like the ocean. And this is how Eula got her vision. Where do grievances come from? Dire straits in the present, or misfortunes of the past? And what does vengeance mean? Vengeance means to right wrongs and rebalance the scales of justice in one's favor. Or does vengeance mean to drive one's foes into a pit of agony? Restore the clan's former glory with the respect of the common folk. Stand once more at the apex of rulership. These things were utterly unimportant to Eula. Absolutely not important to Eula. She never experienced the great humiliation of her clan, and all the torment she had endured in her life had been because of the Lawrences, and still because of the Lawrences. She attempts to free herself from their shackles. She struggles to obtain recognition from the outside world. Her talk of grievances and vengeance is but a habit, a signal, and a shield. For someone in her unique position and with her circumstances, what remarks should she just laugh off, and what ideas should she hold on to? How should she fight this battle to break free once and for all from the great burden of the Lawrences? It was with all these questions and more circling in her mind that Eula came under the tutelage of a long-forgotten old outrider. From him, Amber's grandfather, she learned an open-mindedness and down-to-earth persistence that she had never previously encountered. Before grappling with grievances and vengeance, before questions of clan and outsider, she had to discover herself first. Her survival mechanism, her means of self-preservation, grit, and determination. She may articulate it in terms of grievances and vengeance, but nothing can change what it actually is at its core, which is something both strong and kind. When Eula finally found herself on a gentle path of revenge that was hers alone, and the moment that she set foot on that path, her vision appeared before her. There you go. That is the basics of Eula'S lore in a nutshell. I would like to explore much more of this in detail. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I would love to know, love to hear it. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one. And we're going to see all of you in the next video that we do. Take care, everybody.